Call a special meeting to order at 3:38 PM, January 13th, 2015. Stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, John Wakefield.
Here.
Dale.
Here.
Ron.
Here.
Troy's here, and Sean will be here shortly. He's on his way. Next, additions or corrections to the agenda. Which I don't think we can have additions or corrections.
No.
Motion to approve.
I'm going, I move we approve the agenda.
Moved by Dale to approve the agenda. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Seconded by Ron. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Since Sean isn't here for the new courthouse, I'll move right to the appointment of Brooks and Ronigan to the water board. Is this Barry Ronigan and Bob Brooks?
Yeah, Bob needs to be appointed for a new 4-year term, and Barry needs to be appointed to serve out the remainder of his 4-year term, the remaining 3 years. I'm not sure why that is, but that's what I was told.
So Barry wants to get out, but we can't find anybody to replace him, so he's agreed to.
Okay, so we're okay. Yeah, you know more about it than I do.
Yeah.
Okay.
So somebody should. We're supposed to find replacements for him. That's what they keep telling me.
Oh, are we?
The commissioners are.
So whose district is he in?
He's down in my district, but we need somebody from up in your district. Is what I.
Oh, because Bob Brooks is in my district.
Yeah, and Heyerdahl's in mine.
Well, Barry must be.
Or is he
He's got to be in yours too.
too? Yeah. It doesn't have to be that way,
Right.
but that's.
So we should have somebody from
Yeah, up north. That's kind of how they like to see it represented geographically, or when it comes down to it, whoever they can get to. Munson must be in your district.
Mm-hmm.
Lee, so.
He is, yeah.
Yep. But so's Bob Brooks.
Mm-hmm. Right on the line, basically.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
It doesn't need to be that way, I guess, but it's how they'd like to see it.
Okay. Well, for now, we should just appoint these fellas,
Mm-hmm.
I would suppose.
Yeah.
We can deal with how we replace Barry if that's
Well, had he
his wish.
resigned then?
I think it was his intention to. He was I think he's filling in because Don For's was,
Okay, so that's why he needs to be.
he took over Don For's.
That's
Because
why.
Don was had enough.
Right. So we need a motion then to appoint Bob Brooks to a new 4-year term and appoint Barry Ronigan to serve all the 3 remaining years on his term. So moved.
It's been moved by John to appoint Bob Brooks to a new 4-year term on the water board and Barry Ronigan for the remaining 3 years of his term. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Seconded by Dale. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Well, let's move to the new courthouse, old courthouse item. You guys can lay some groundwork for us before Sean gets here, I guess.
Yeah, should I just start going through this real slow, I guess? The first line on there, total requested by CE, that was their pay request 8A that they turned in quite a while ago. I'm not sure if it got copied to everybody or not, but it should have been. But the numbers that they are requesting, well, they say completed and stored to date are the 1,011,011 for the EOC, 1,920,000 for the courtroom, and a total of 2,932,000. And that takes into account the retained. That's the total amount that they want. And on the same pay request, they're saying that they have been paid $869 by Griggs County. They've been paid $1,645,000 by the building authority. So they've been paid a total of $2,515,000. So option one would be to pay them what they want, and then we go our separate ways. We don't worry about them coming back to finish it up or do the site work. But they would be happy if they got a check for $142 from the county, $273 from the building authority, or $416 total. And that would, like I say, that would settle us up. We'd be done like with mediation or litigation or anything else, really. They'd sign off on that, but we would have to get somebody else to come in and finish up. Option two, I put down three of the larger things that we might have a better chance at arguing with them on. One of them was the extra for the winter conditions, that's 70,000, and I split it up between the UOC and the courtroom. And then the next one was the certified payroll portion of the Davis-Bacon project. Yes.
Oh, Sean? Oh.
It's on the back of your agenda. And we're just going down.
Just started. We just appointed a couple water board members before you got here. That's all we did.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, you were one of them.
I will quickly recap that. Option one, if the county paid 142, the building authority paid 274, or 416 total, CE would be happy. We can go our separate ways.
Really?
Yeah, we'd be split up with that one.
So the 416 is the amount that's not been certified, that's been billed?
Correct.
Well, the amount that's been certified is kind of in question too, but because I've seen other numbers higher than this, but it's the difference between what we paid and what they want, and we can ignore the certifications completely, really. We paid up to $2,515,000 because we thought that was all that she had certified, and technically that's right. It is on.
We have an invoice from construction engineers stating the 142 to complete.
Yes.
And every item's on there.
Yeah, we got an invoice for the $416,000 right here.
And we have one for, then we have it built broke up separately.
That's the Portland one there, this is the EOC. But yeah, they are saying that for the EOC, they want 142.
That's not to complete, that's to.
No, that's to
That's to get,
construction.
correct.
that's to get caught up.
Yeah, that's to go our separate ways. If we paid them that amount, then we probably wouldn't have to mediate or litigate. But the building's not finished.
But we do have on these invoices, remaining contract to bill. That is the $63,000 to complete.
Or the 186.
Or the 186.
On this
yeah.
one.
Yeah. Or the balance of it. 122 and 63,000 equals the 186 to complete.
So if you add up,
We'll get to that. Let Ron go through the rest of it.
Okay.
Yeah. I got ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, so anyway, I took the three big items that, to me are controversial. They're fairly large, and we have a probably a better chance at arguing our case on those items. Anyway, I subtracted out those three items for all the parties, and that's option two. With option two, the county would pay 97, the building authority would pay 189, or we would pay 286. And I put that's an offer. That's not a settlement, but we could make that offer to them and say, look, guys, we're not satisfied with these three things, so we'll offer to pay you 286. What do you think? And then I know they would have to accept or reject our offer. Option three is adding in the finishing cost to option one, and option one is paying them everything. So it's the 63,000 from the county, 122 from the BA, or 186 total. So for option three, if the county paid them 205, BA 397, or if they got that 602, that would be everything. They would be happy. They would come back. They would do all of the site work, all of the asphalt, finish the building. We'd get the warranties on mechanical, the warranties on electrical, and so on.
and that 602 would bring it to the guaranteed maximum price.
It would bring it above over, and John will get into that.
Okay.
When he gets to his part.
I thought of just doing it in my head that it
Yeah.
was never
Close, but
Yeah.
Okay.
And then option four is really, it's option two where I subtracted out those three major things. And then if we still tried to get them to finish it, and there's no guarantee they would want to finish it if we're fighting over these things. But then we would end up paying 160. The BA would pay 311, and the total would be 472. And with the first four options, that's the amount that would be paid to CE. But with options 1 and 2, we don't have the site work finished. So down below that, I said that if we tried to lowball the site work, that instead of spending $186,000 for the site work, I thought we could probably do it for $93,000. And the reason being that just those three numbers, earthwork, asphalt paving, and concrete paving, add up to $111,000. And then there's other numbers like landscaping and flagpole and bollards that are in there. But I thought we could take $93,000 out of that, but we wouldn't have we wouldn't have nearly the site work that was shown on the drawings.
And that's a guess.
yes.
Yeah, so with these options,
That's option 5.
yeah, like option 5 would be to take option 1, to pay him up and get rid of him, and then pay an additional $32,000 to finish the EOC portion of the site work. So option 5 for the Griggs County, it's option 1 plus that $32,000 worth of site work. And the same with the building authority. Option 5 is option 1 plus the $60,000 worth of site work. And so the total, the total obligation of Griggs County with option 5 would be 174. And 142 of that would be for construction engineers, and the remaining cost would be for other contractors that we'd have to bring in. And option 6 is very similar. It's the amount with option 2, if we took out the 3 of those disputed items, and then we end up with option 2, the 97,476 for the county, and you add in the 32,000 to do the site work with our own subs, then that would come up to 129 for the county. And the other number just kind of go across accordingly. So that's, I don't know, yeah, that's 6 options that, obviously there's more options we could come up with, but it's kind of a condensation of a whole lot of possibilities that seem to make them to differentiate.
Right. So if we took option 2, we would we would offer them $130,000 less than what they're asking for.
Yes.
So then the question then would be, okay, are we gonna end up in mediation for that amount of money?
Well, we could offer it to them and then wait their response. They could come back, and I'm an optimist, they could come back and say, oh, let's split the difference.
Yeah, and of that 130,000, roughly 47,000 of it is the EOC, of which 3/4 of that would be reimbursed anyway.
That's correct.
So the savings really isn't what it looks like it is.
That's correct.
Yeah, the savings appears to be $75,000 proposed savings, and it really isn't.
If we took option one, am I doing this right? No, option one, it would take to pay what's still on the books. It would cost $274,000 for the building authority, $142,000 for the building authority,
For the county.
or for the county, I mean, and then $63,000 to finish, for a total of $205,000.
Right.
And to finish the courthouse for the building authority, it costs $397,000.
Right.
Yeah, okay. Yep, that would be option 3, to pay them everything and to pay them what they want to finish it.
For a total of $602,000.
That would be a total of 602.
Right. So, in the case of the building authority, then, they have a 397, 134. They got 200,000 in the bank. So they would have 197, 134. And of that 205,000, the county would be reimbursed 175,000 of that.
Well, that's where we get into this up here. Yeah, if we're not going to finish it, right?
Well, if we do finish it.
No, then it's here. Then that's here. Then here we start out with
I'm trying to get to the end game.
Okay, here's the end game. Here's the end game. Here we start out with $156,000. This is option 3. This is where we pay off the 142 everything that's owed, and we have construction engineers finish it.
Is that the bank balance?
That's the bank balance, beginning balance in the bank right now. That's where we have to start. That's what's in the bank in the county. Here's Ron's option 6. This is the same thing, other than this is a discounted amount, taking away the 24,000, the 13, and the 6,000.
Yep.
And following it through, and here's his cost to finish is $32,000. Okay, so if you run this through, we're starting with $156,000. The first thing we do is we pay construction engineers at 142.
Yep.
That leaves us a balance of $13,000. We're reimbursed by the DES $106,000. Now we have a balance of $120. Now we pay the cost to complete all that, $63,000. Takes us down to a $57,000 balance. The DES reimburses us $47,000, and now we have a balance at the end of completion of $104,000 that gets turned over at the end of the project to the building authority. On the other side here, it appears that the savings should be $75,000 from the cost to complete and from the discounts taken. It isn't. We still start with the same 156,000. $97,000 is what we pay to construction engineers. That's the
reimbursement. No.
But now we only get reimbursed $58,000, and now we reimburse $73,000. Takes our balance down to $58,000. Now we have a balance of $131,000. We subtract the $32,000, the cost to finish, but we don't know what the cost to finish is.
Yep.
Now we're down to a balance of $99,000 and $57,000. Again, back comes the DES reimbursement on the 32 is only $24,000 compared to $74,000.
So the actual savings, instead of being 75,000 these two plans, is only $19,000. Now that's the savings to the county. What gets passed on, of course, is the building authority would get $19,000 less. Then instead of getting this, they would get this. But there's probably going to be some incidentals involved here, so we couldn't pass on any funds until we were sure everything was done. Now it's hard to believe, but the construction engineer says there's $63,000 left to finish the project here.
Just on the EOC portion? Or?
EOC portion of it, 186 total. But on the EOC portion of it, $37,000 of that is outside work. It's concrete, pavement, and things like that, only leaving $25,000 to finish inside. I don't think we can finish it inside for $25,000 if we go hire other contractors.
Boy, I would kind of think we could, really. I mean, it's hanging 20-some doors, putting down 40 square foot of flooring, and hooking up those 3 units.
Yeah.
It seemed, I would think we could do it for 25, but that's just my different opinion.
Let's say we can do it. Let's say we can do it for the difference, and we're going to save $19,000. That's assuming the construction engineers agrees to this arrangement.
We don't end up in mediation.
Well, we'll still end up in mediation because they won't, because the building authority probably won't go along with this. Who cares? But we'll pay out. We know that construction engineers is going to take our offer of 205. That's the combination of what they billed us, 142 plus 63. We can say, we accept this, send them this, it's all itemized. Everything's itemized here. We can say, yep, we'll pay you 142 right now. When you finish, we'll pay you 63. We accept it. We've got the money to do it. It takes away all the hassles. It takes away every bit of the warranty. Worried about that. It takes away every bit of trying to hire contractors. We're risking all this for a savings of $19,000 that we don't know is there.
Yeah, maybe, may not.
Well, we don't have any way. There's $37,000 of site work out there. How do you discount the price of concrete and pavement? That's a hard cost. So I don't think there's any savings at all, and I certainly don't think from a risk standpoint it makes any sense other than to pay them what they're due.
And I agree with John's numbers on option 3. I can't bring myself to vote for paying construction engineers everything, for giving up on all those things we fought about on equipment rentals, small tools. But I can't do it.
Let me finish.
But on the other side of that coin, if I'm reading this right, and maybe they say, well, that's not what we meant when we say, it doesn't appear like there's any mobilization costs or anything like that in there, and those are hard costs also. So if they're willing to come back and do that, I'm willing to, in my head, say, okay, let's move this thing forward, get it behind us, and move on with life. Because I think that is really, just in the people that I have contact with, that's what they like to see when we're at this point.
Yeah, I won't have any heartburn if you decide to go that way, but I just can't stomach working it out, so it's fine if you guys go for it.
Moving on down here, just for informational sake, the $29,570.93 was the guaranteed maximum price originally.
Yep.
The $602,793 is what it's going to take to finish it. Now, that includes the $67,000 of Davis Bacon, which would have been added on to the guaranteed maximum price if they would have known. So it's not really fair to include it as 602. We have to decrease it by the 67,000. You subtract that from the completed to date, the 2.515,542, and you get 3,118 $335 with the Davis-Bacon included, but that was a cost anyway. So actual cost over and above the guaranteed maximum price, taking out the Davis-Bacon wages, is only 3.19%. That's all the increase this thing because of the shutdown. That's minimal in my estimation. And I don't believe there's any chance in the world that Construction Engineers is going to accept a lesser offer. And Ron's right. There's lots of stuff to argue about here. But what we're risking arguing about it is far greater than just swallowing hard and getting this thing done. So my recommendation would be to send them a letter saying that we agree to the $205,000. We'll send you a check for $142,000 contingent on you finishing the remainder of the project for the 63. That throws the ball into their court. They can cash a check if they agree to finish it for the 205 total. If they don't, what numbers are they going to use at mediation? We're already agreeing to everything.
And that, just to be clear now, that 142, that includes the retainage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the number, when you look at that number, that 400,000, well over 100,000 of that is that retainage.
Mm-hmm.
5% of the 2.5, so it's $126,000 approximately.
Right.
120, 130.
There's no arguing about that at all.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, I know.
And there's really no arguing about the Davis-Bacon either, really,
No.
when push comes to shove. So what we're arguing over is a smaller number in the end, in the scheme of things, that I'm willing to argue over. That's in my head.
Well, I don't think, again, the best possible outcome is they accept this offer and there's a savings of $19,000. I don't think there's any chance in the world he's going to accept that offer. I also don't believe that the building authority is going to go along with this. It doesn't matter. We have the ability to move forward on our own. And the purpose of mediation is going to try to get both sides, all three sides, in consensus. If Construction Engineers says that we owe them $205,000 and we pay them $205,000, we're kind of out of the equation. Any monies that might have been, the argument might come from the building authority that they've paid more than we have reimbursed them. If that is the case, then all they have to do is show us, because we can't find it, Ron and I can't find where we've turned everything in, although there are a few things that were rejected, and I'm checking with Connie to make sure they've been resubmitted. We will have done exactly as the grant instructed us to do. Every last penny when we're done with this thing will have been spent on the EOC, and every last penny that was spent on the EOC by the building authority will have been reimbursed to them. And the documentation from the DES and Construction Engineers documentation will confirm that. And the projects will be separate. From here on out, they're going to be separate. So there shouldn't be any more contention on who owes what or whose duty this is to pay any of this. It should be cut and dried.
Is there enough money to finish the project on the building authority side?
That's where I was trying to get to the end.
They're doing it this way. There was enough money, but they have spent, it was going to come up about $73,000 short. They have spent really close to that amount on items outside of the contract. But
Do you know what the balance is?
we know, but we have a real firm grip on what the expenses over and above, and those are mounting as we go. Keep in mind, we don't have any ability to take money and throw into that. That is a private entity. At the most, and I don't agree with it, but at the most we were obligated to the amount of the grant funds. That is the county's obligation, plus
the 25%, which we've already paid in the form of $290,000. We're gonna come up short there unless we maximize the grant funds. If we get to $900,000, $910,000 that we've got out of the grant, that will put us even with the 290 that we've put into the project approximately. So this isn't dependent on the building authority coming along. We would hope they come along. It will be to their advantage to come along. They have the money to come along. If they don't come along, we can't force them, nor can we be held up by their inaction.
No, we have a drop dead date.
We have an obligation to do what we have an obligation to do, and our obligation is to the EOC's portion of this. Construction Engineers has put us in a position where we can satisfy our portion of it. They tell us what we owe. We've got it right here. It's invoice, and it's all itemized. We just send that, and we say, we agree. We'll give you the 142 right now, and we'll give you the 63 when you finish, and done deal.
I think I know the answer to this, but if we paid them 142, is there any chance that they would sign a receipt acknowledging they've been paid in full for the EOC?
I don't think their lawyer would allow them to do that, but it really doesn't matter because the purpose of the mitigation or litigation is going to be determine who owes what to construction engineers. And who better to tell the mitigator or the litigator who owes what than construction engineers, and they told us we paid it. So it really doesn't make any difference if they sign off or not. By their mere acceptance of it, they sign off.
We'll have a payment trail.
Yeah. So that's my recommendation, and I fully agree with Ron's description of this, and he's right, that we're paying for stuff that we probably wouldn't have paid for under normal circumstances. But I believe it's in the best interest of the taxpayers of Griggs County to get this behind us.
I can understand that you won't.
Is the site work split proportionally too? Or?
Yep.
That's the 63,000. And it's all
That's our
itemized.
34% of the site.
If you look at
It's
the
all
bottom down
itemized
there,
out here, and here it's all itemized here.
Okay.
Yeah.
37,000 for the EOC and 73,000 for the.
And
Oh,
they'll
there we
come
go,
back and
okay.
finish without additional mobilization.
We don't know that. We don't know that. So that would be the only variable is that they're gonna charge mobilization costs. And we do have the money, and it is reimbursable if that's the case.
Well, is construction engineers even going to do anything to finish, or is it all subcontractors?
Well, yeah, they put money in for their project manager, for their superintendent, a few weeks for the project manager, a few weeks for the superintendent, safety and
Sure.
quality control.
I mean, there won't be an additional mobilization cost for the paving contractor because he hasn't been here.
I've been here. Or the
Or the
cement
concrete
contractor,
guy.
because he had to come back.
Or the dirt work guy. I mean, the only people that may have a case for mobilization would be like Bergstrom Electric and Agassiz. But even those guys, I mean,
It's a big
Agassiz stuff is all here except for the thermostats.
So mobilization is everybody getting
I mean-
truck and drive up.
Yeah,
So there is the possibility of a few more costs, but again, they are reimbursable, then they go back to the whole thing where we get 75% of them back, and we're not so far, Ron can't see and I can't see where we're going to be able to maximize the grant. Unless we find some items that have been disqualified and we haven't provided documentation for. And there is one in question at $80,000 early on that was required more documentation.
yeah, I thought it was rejected. But,
Yeah, but I think that some ones have rejected due to documentation. Well, that would. So we need to check with Debbie and make sure there's nothing that we can still bring back into the project. And we wouldn't be able to turn over the remainder of the balance until we'd signed off on the project. So because once we turn over the balance, we have nothing to kick in for the 25%. But also, I think it would be beneficial if construction engineers knew that any monies we send to the building authority will be a two-party check with their name on it. So that's how I see it. And
I don't think we'll avoid mediation, because I'm quite sure that construction engineers won't be paid in full. So we'll go to mediation, and that's probably fine. If we've already agreed to pay what construction engineers tells us we have to pay, what more can we, what are we obligated to?
Other than a seat at the table when mediation comes.
Yeah, and hopefully a seat at the table, and hopefully resolution to the differences between the building authority and us. I mean, if we get to the end of the mediation, whatever the outcome there is, the outcome, but we'll already paid ahead on our part of it, and we'll have money to handle, or they will have to make retribution, whichever way it goes. So I think mediation is still, will take place, and I think that's fine. But we've pretty well taken care of every aspect of what our involvement should be there.
Anybody have any more questions?
What may I ask are the 3 items you threw out?
Well, the red stuff.
Yeah, I know, whatever.
Well,
Part of
winter,
it's Davis Bacon.
winter conditions,
Oh, there we go.
lowered the interest rate, and certified payroll.
I mean, the Davis Bacon, there's 24,000 that's actual Davis Bacon wages that were underpaid. The rest of it is administrative costs. I mean, there's room for argument. Ron is correct in all this. There is room for argument on it. But when you get to a negotiated process, sometimes for the good of the
Cost
many,
is more than the benefit.
Well, and in any mediation that I've been involved in, you end up somewhere in the middle.
right, and
So
we'll
then-
went to one side.
So then if you end up somewhere in the middle, that $19,000 is gonna shrink. If in fact that's accurate to begin with. So,
Yeah.
you know, that's the risk. You know, what are you putting at risk to gain what you're gonna gain, other than, being on the right side? And,
Well-
and what's that worth?
The quickest way to end an argument is to just agree with the party you oppose. It takes away all the, and by agreeing to pay, we're taking away the argument. But we certainly need something drawn up by Jamie. We want to reference this invoice here and phrase it correctly so that we could make a we could, again, we agree to the $205,000. We're sending you $142,000 in your, if you agree to finish the project for the set amount. And we'll send it, the whole sheet showing everything that has to be done. And if they agree, they agree. We send them a check and it's done.
So I would say this boils down to Plan A or Plan B or Option 1. I don't want to call it Option 1 and 2 because I can't keep, there's too many options.
Yeah, the options are pay them what they deem they're owed, or continue negotiating
Right.
continue down the path that we're on now, which seems to be getting us nowhere.
I can't imagine that they agree to anything less than what they do.
Well, that billing is already a huge reduction from what the proposed billing is going to be.
The 8A one, right? Is that what we're talking about?
This
Is that what this
here,
is?
yeah.
8A?
Yeah.
And that's a combination, yeah. This would, either way, well, not either way, but this would, we wouldn't have to hire craft architects, we wouldn't have to,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, more costs.
yeah,
And the 156, that's our buildings and grounds.
That's what we have, that's what we will have as of, we got notice today that $76,000 was coming, so we'll have 80 plus the 76, that's what's in our account.
Okay.
So we couldn't actually pay the 205 straight up, we have to start out, but it's luckily, it works out real well. The 142 comes out, it comes back, and there shouldn't be any time lapse because we're paying the whole 142, they don't have to, DES doesn't have to break it out.
Well, the rest of it should be easy from here on in.
Right, yeah. It accomplished, in one sense, it really made the project a lot easier to finalize because now it's separate contracts. So,
Are there any statutory requirements that we have to have Kraft follow through to the end of this thing?
I don't think so.
that's beyond my pay scale.
I can't think of any.
That's more of a structural thing, it isn't really.
Yeah, yeah, the state electrical inspector signs off and the plumbing
That way,
inspector. I think that's it. I don't think, normally the architect does do a punch list and all that stuff, but
Right.
we don't have to have a punch list.
Okay.
But they formally removed themselves.
Yeah,
That letter they gave us basically said their contract was done, although
They said-
construction engineers didn't have the ability to terminate their contract, but it appears they terminated it on their own.
Yeah, well, Kraft suspended it,
Yeah.
you know, and she said at one time, maybe we could unsuspend it, but we
Right.
want that even.
I just wanted to make sure we get all that.
Yeah, that would be a
Nice.
question for Ron. I can't, I don't know that.
Well, I think she'd be happy that I have no more involvement in it.
No, I just don't want the DES to
Yeah.
come back to us and say we violated our covenants.
Well, okay, I don't know, but the DES would say your architect should have signed off on the building. I don't think they would, but I guess
Okay.
that's,
And I'm sure that's a doable thing. As we move forward closer and closer to finishing this thing, it becomes harder and harder for any regulatory agency to throw rocks at it because there's a cost to that too, you know, so.
Okay.
Well, the next step would be to propose that one of the plans go to, or have Ron and I compose the language in order to send it to Jamie, in order to make the offer to construction engineers. Is what we need, right, Ron?
yeah. I imagine somebody will make a motion for option 3, right?
Well, I don't know. I mean, we either offer to pay them what they're owed, or we offer to continue negotiations.
Mm-hmm.
I think
That's what I
it's
see.
down to that.
I think so.
And it would be nice to include the building authority in these negotiations, but they don't appear to have any desire to do that.
I visited with Ron Halverson yesterday and he wasn't very receptive to talking about it. He kind of wanted to go back to kicking sand at each other, and I think we're past that point. I don't want to play that game.
Thankfully, they are separate contracts now, and they are separate entities, as they always should have been, a private and a public entity, and what county does will influence the building authority to a certain extent, because the more money we can put in for reimbursement, the more they're gonna get in the end of it, and that's what we're trying to do here. But we can't be responsible for their prior or future actions, because it was set up to get around that in the first place. That's why it's set up the way it is.
Right. So. Well, what are your wishes, fellers? Everybody want to take a stab at it?
No, I don't think I should. I mean, I pushed one side of it here, and
Well, I think that's all right. It would be all right for you to make a motion. for you.
Well, let them, I mean, I don't want, again, that's,
I guess I'd make a motion that we pay construction engineers what they've billed us, $205 or $205,634.50.
Well,
They haven't billed us that yet.
That we're all two, okay.
Well,
We're gonna pay them 143.61 contingent on finishing the project for the 63.
yeah, I mean, they really have, yeah, they will bill us, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's, that option makes sense, yeah, there's no, it's cut and dried, if they accept it, there's no variables, it'll be done.
Yeah, I can understand that.
it's been moved by Dale to proceed with construction engineer's proposal of paying the $142,361.87 contingent on them coming back and completing the EOC center at a cost of $63,272.63. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Seconded by Sean. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I guess the discussion is, Ron put all this stuff together, he did all.
Well, I thank you guys for all your work.
Yeah,
on this.
yeah,
I was
I mean, but all this is, even though he didn't agree with it, Ron put all it together.
Oh, it was a lot of criticism from
Can only do what I do best.
Is it constructive?
Nothing wrong with that.
I put everything in the back of.
You know, it's like they say, it's not what you say, it's how you say it, and I know John is pretty diplomatic.
I missed that.
Well, I'll tell you this, I'm a lot more diplomatic in an open meeting than when Ron and I sit down together.
Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. John?
Aye.
Dale?
Aye.
Ron?
No.
Sean?
Aye.
Troy votes aye. Motion carries. Well, we'll see if they mean what they say.
Okay.
Well, I'll be happy to keep working on this stuff.
Without you, Ron, we couldn't have got any of this way. That's where the numbers come from.
So we'll get with Jamie and, well, we can compose a letter first and then get with Jamie and have him refine it and then get, construction engineers and,
Jamie might want to listen to that.
yeah. Yep. And hopefully we move forward and get this done.
That'd be good.
I will approach probably somebody in the building authority to inform them what happened.
I think Keith seems to be the one that's kind of
Yeah.
Getting-
I'll talk to Rick.
getting leaned on the most. Okay,
I move we adjourn.
been moved by John that we adjourn. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Seconded by Dale. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned at 4:26 PM on January 13th. The next regular meeting is scheduled for January 23rd at 1 PM.